Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another one of the entrepreneurial skills sessions. I see a few of you guys in the chat already. Welcome back, Joseph. Welcome back, Colm. I am sure we will have more joining us as we go on. Today is an interesting one. It's going to be good. Once again, for anybody who this is their first video they're just clicking on, my name is Joseph Lanzillotta. I am the Student Entrepreneurship Program Manager for Tangent, Trinity's Ideas Workspace, and my job is to help new budding entrepreneurs and innovators get their ideas off the ground. The best way I can do that is to be available for conversation, and one of the ways to facilitate conversation is going through some great content that is already out there online. And today, and through a number of these sessions to start it off, we've been going through the Techstars Toolkit. So the Techstars Toolkit is an online resource. The link to the toolkit in its entirety is in the description of this video. And today, the topic we're going through is engaging with mentors. So this is interesting as something I'm really excited to go through today, mainly because I have been on both sides of the mentor-mentee process, and there's a lot to learn from kind of being on both sides of it, but also because I've looked through this before, and there is a structured process for how to go into a mentorship session and what you should aim to get out of any mentorship session, and how to make sure that you maximize that, how to make sure you get the most out of your sessions that you're sitting down with a mentor and actually building relationships there potentially. So I am not going to delay. There are a number of videos we have to get through today. So without further ado, I'm going to start off as always with the topic at the top. Engage with mentors. Mentor meetings are an opportunity to address challenges and gain insights that could change the course of your company. In this section, you will learn techniques for holding productive mentor meetings and optimizing interactions to move your business forward. Perfect. That's what we're here to do. We'll start it off with the trailer. And again, if there are any issues and you can't hear anything or anything goes wrong, just type it into the chat and I will be here to help.
If the person doesn't have a background in it, you can leverage them and learn from them in other ways. You don't need to convince them of the viability of the product itself. How's David feeling right now? Excited. Yeah. He's engaged, right? He's feeling super excited. He's actually mentoring. He's giving you good information.
We're spending a lot of time sort of deconstructing what the problem is so that then, once I know where the problem is, we can talk about, well, maybe here's some ideas on how you can solve it.
Perfect. So it all starts with diagnosing the problem. I'm sure we're going to get a bit deeper into it as we go through. But yeah, these are the sessions. We're going to go through the introduction, engage with your mentors. Number 2, read your mentor. Number 3, redirect your mentor. Number 4, ask better questions. Number 5, build relationships. And finally, number 6, the final thoughts overall. And then, as always, we'll go through the exercises here on the right-hand side. I'll click through, I'll walk you through, and you can follow up as you see fit. Maybe do those exercises. But importantly, what I will say for today, because it is a mentorship session, or it's about mentorship, I'm just going to mention that with Tangent, we do have one-to-one mentorship sessions that are open to all Trinity students, past, present, but also I am interested in anybody who has new ideas, so you feel free to reach out to me or book in a one-to-one with myself. The link to that is in the description of this video, but I might drop it in later just when I have a chance to copy and paste it in. So you guys can click through if you'd like to book a one-to-one mentorship session with me anytime. I am still doing them virtually, as well as Allison, who manages the Summer Accelerator program, and Gavin, who's the head of entrepreneurship, aka my boss. Hi, Gavin, if you're watching this. So with that, guys, we're going to dive right into the content. We will go right into part 1, introduction, engage with mentors. Surrounding yourself with mentors who give first to help build your business can be game-changing for an entrepreneur. This video introduces our Techstars mentors who will teach you how to optimize your time and productivity with each mentor meeting. Now, I'll just highlight in there, it says give first. Give first is a Techstars tagline, if you could say one. Giving first is the idea that when you go into an interaction with somebody new, you're trying to give something to them before you ask them for absolutely anything. And that mentality is what makes their entrepreneurial community and the entrepreneurial community that we try to facilitate in Trinity College Dublin in Tangent really special. That mentality being fostered is something I'd hope that everybody can carry through. So with that, we'll dive into the introduction.
I'm Nicole Glaros. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer here at Techstars. This is David Brown, a co-CEO at Techstars. And we're going to walk you guys through a mock mentor meeting. So let me tell you why first, because I believe we all need to understand why we go through these things. Historical feedback over time has been that companies didn't feel like they got in their groove until right around meeting 15 or 20 with mentors. That means you wasted 20 meetings of your time and the mentor's time trying to figure out what the hell you're even talking about. So our goal, our objective today is to try to accelerate that and get you to about 2 meetings before you feel like you're getting value and you're adding value to the mentors. So that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna actually get pretty deep and personal with a little of you. We had that in the last session too. So I like to set some ground rules. First is that any negative feedback is out of love, right? We all want you guys to get better, and you can't get better by saying good job. One little tip for everybody is it's really tempting to watch the person that's speaking, like mostly the team. Don't watch the team, watch David. What we're looking for is an interaction between them around what's working and what's not. And if you're only watching the person speaking, you're missing half of the equation. We're going to pretend like we're going to go through we're going to pretend like we're going through a mentor meeting. So we're going to orient the same way. Normal mentor meetings are somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes. It depends on the program, but we're going to do it in about 5. And what I'm going to do in that mentor meeting is stop a lot and point out what's working and what's not working.
Cool. So she's going to walk us through if you guys were on some of the earlier sessions that we've gone through. As I said, the Techstars Toolkit is more expansive than just today. If you have been on some of the previous sessions, you've seen Nicole Guerra before. She is wonderful. She's great. She's in a lot of the sessions, but she's going to be walking us through today. To answer your question directly, Aviva, yes, I never stop mentoring. I put it in the chat there, and I also put the link there to the Tangent Mentoring link. What that is you can go in and you can see when Gavin, myself, Allison are available for mentorship sessions, and literally just book one in. And all it'll ask you to do is just set up a Zoom call, if you guys are familiar with Zoom. Otherwise, it walks you through it. And you set up a Zoom call, and then you can sit down and have a one-to-one mentorship session with us whenever it fits into our calendar, and that's pre-booked based on our Outlook. So yeah, but it is windowed between the hours of 9 and 5. So if you need to book anything outside of that, my email is also in the description. I'm happy to chat to you. With that, I'm going to keep us moving forward. Part 2, read your mentor. Checking their watch, fidgeting, or learning in their leaning in are all nonverbal sign mentors may give you during a meeting. This video will guide you on recognizing communication cues that indicate you may need to shift the conversation elsewhere. So this is important. We're learning how to be adaptive in our meetings.
Super important to be very much in tune with how your mentor is feeling during your mentor session. And the best way to do that is to watch their body language.
Most communication is done non-verbally, and it is in the learning to read body language that you get really good at engaging not only mentors, but humans everywhere.
If they're fidgety and checking their watch or their phone.
Learning how to recognize when a person's eyes glaze over. Learning how to recognize that lean in motion when somebody's really interested and excited.
Be in tune with those nonverbal cues so that you can pivot the conversation when appropriate.
Hey, hey.
Hi, guys.
Brian Freeman.
Brian, nice to meet you. I'm David.
Hi, I'm Kate Edwards. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Jim Mulhern.
Jim, nice to meet you. Love the
We're
shirt.
Heartbeat. So thanks so much for sitting with us.
Great to be here.
And we kind of studied your background, and we'd love to talk specifically about how much you know about scaling. So trying to keep it a little more casual and stop us if we're talking too much. But I don't know if you've gotten a chance to check out Heartbeat at all, but we are a marketing automation platform backed by about 120,000 female brand ambassadors. Heartbeat for consumers is this gamified platform that really gives you access to brands as a normal person you would have never had access to, and then meets these young women where they are in social media and says, hey, we will give you product, we will give you cash, we will give you community fun incentives to go on your personal social channel and promote something.
So is this about targeting people who want to be the big influencers, but maybe don't have the following, and you're giving them some tools to do better than they otherwise might have?
Yeah. So it's finding people who want to be it. Yeah, and I can show you the product too to give you a sense of like what these people are experiencing. But when they join Heartbeat, we built something that feels kind of like a LinkedIn profile for them. See, I'm doing my research. We got David Brown up here.
Can I pause you?
Yes.
Like David right now is wondering,
Okay.
like he even told you that at the beginning. Like I'm familiar with the concept, but you're sort of trying to talk him into it a little bit.
Okay.
And he's trying to stay engaged, like he's trying to make jokes to stay engaged, but his mind is wandering. I'm looking at him doing this and this, right? So just pay attention. So for you guys, like pay attention, and do you feel like you're losing the mentor? You're losing him quickly, right? He's trying to stay engaged because he wants to be helpful, but he told you like that he doesn't know that much about the space. So don't try to talk him, you don't need to educate him if he doesn't want it.
Okay.
So you can ask him, would you like to learn more? Or you want to just dive right into our scale issues? Feel free to ask him, right?
So you teased me with that, by the way, at the beginning, right? With, I want to talk to you about scaling. There's an area. And my first thought was, I was going to say to you, well, just give me 30 seconds on the product before we dive into that, just so I have an idea. Now we're 3 minutes in. I'm dying to go back to the scaling conversation.
I think in general we have talent, but we have not gone from a team of 4 or 9 full-time to a team of 18 or 20. And we find that although we're pretty much the best in the world at generating content, we do more than anyone else on a weekly basis right now anywhere. We don't fully understand the effects of like what's potentially coming. We have 45 active clients now. We need to 10x that in the next year.
So I want to stop before you answer. What's going through David's mind? Does anybody know? Is anyone watching him?
I know.
I know. Anybody but David. What is his body language saying or said?
Hesitation, nervousness, like, or something like that.
He's eager. I bet he's eager.
Yeah, I feel like he's confused and like he's confused and fidgety.
Why are you confused and fidgety?
Not confused and fidgety. I'm ready to ask my next question.
Fidgety. He's eager. So my point is like, my point is that he actually had body language, and to pay attention to it and notice the shift in change, like notice the change and try to figure out what's going on. Like he was like sitting like this, and then he went legs like this, and he went back like this again, right? So he's getting anxious. So your guys' job is to try to help figure out what's going on. And sometimes it's really easy just to go, hey, what's going through your mind right now? And sometimes when you're talking, it's really hard to be perceptive about what the other person is doing because you're so busy thinking about the next sentence that you're going to say. So oftentimes it's easier for your co-founders, the other people in the room, to help with that. So lean on each other for help in understanding what's going on. Like he wants to answer, and you're still talking. And if he's going to forget what he's going to say, then you've lost out on whatever the thing was that was in his mind.
Mm-hmm. So my impression on what you're describing is you're worried about problems that haven't happened yet. Okay. It's not that you have a problem building the sales organization or the operations team or user growth, or at least if you have those problems, you haven't articulated them.
Okay.
I find it's very common in the startups that we work with. I would focus on the problems that you're having, not the problems that you think you might have next year or next month or even next week.
Okay.
Fair?
Yeah.
So do you have any scaling problems right now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So one thing that we're faced with is we tend to be reactionary about like problems that we face with customers. So because we've been really fast and loose with like getting the deal, just get the deal.
Sell the dream, service the nightmare?
Yeah. Yes. Oh, there's a term for it. Dang, that's relieving.
There is a term for that.
So That's something that we've experienced for sure.
Yeah, so look, it's very common early on. It's okay that it's good that you're taking a note of it, and maybe it's reassuring that other companies go through it. The story I tell there is, Michael Dell, when he was selling computers early on from his dorm room, he sold it on the value prop of, every computer can be customized, and now it's robots making it or whatever, but he was hand assembling them after he ripped a print off of the printer, and he figured out how to scale that process later. If you're selling the dream and you're scrambling to service it while you're figuring it out, that is okay. That is normal. That is what you should do because it means you're selling something, right? If you wait till all the process on the back end is perfect, then you won't be able to put a product into market and test it out and see if customers love it.
Yeah.
So as long as you don't do that forever, it is actually a good thing that you're doing.
Okay.
So how's David feeling right now?
Excited.
Yeah. He's engaged, right? He's feeling super excited. He's actually mentoring. He's giving you good information based on his experience. You got there, yay. Right? This is great because that's where you want David to be thinking about this. You want him to get excited, and he's also excited because he feels like he's helping you.
Yeah.
So notice that when you tap into that part of the person where they actually feel like they're being of assistance, it's really fun and exciting for them.
Absolutely. I said before, I'll say it again, having been on both sides of the mentoring process, it's super exciting when you get really good feedback as the mentee and they answer the question perfectly. It's also really exciting for the mentor when you have an answer that actually really does help somebody and you can point them in the right direction to what their next step is or ease some concerns. So my key takeaway from that one was, as you're going through your mentorship session and having a discussion, ask the mentor, don't lead the mentor. So you're asking for help. You're not necessarily trying to lead them to agree with you. You're trying to prompt them to be able to answer the challenge that you have. And there were some really good insights into how she saw that mentorship session in particular going. I think we're going to go through a few more. Now we're going into the next part of it, which is redirect your mentor. So during a meeting, the mentor could get hung up on a topic you don't want to explore. This video will help you avoid going down conversational rabbit holes and provide tactics for getting the meeting back on track. So this is the opposite instance of what I was talking about, where it's you're not running away on a tangent. This is something where your mentor is going down a roll, whereas if you had a mentorship session with me and started talking about the honeybees, I could go on for 3 weeks about the honeybees and pollinator decline just because that's something I'm excited about, but it may not help you. So here's how we might redirect the conversation.
Sometimes you're in the middle of a mentor meeting and the mentor will ask you questions that take you down a bit of a rabbit hole that you feel isn't terribly productive. Probably the best way to make best use of your time is not to sort of criticize the mentor, but rather to just redirect and say, I have a different question I'd like to bring up with you.
And usually the person will be like, oh, okay, that's great. Happy to help, happy to do that. But what too frequently happens is the entrepreneur doesn't say anything early enough, and then you get sucked so deep down the rabbit hole, then it becomes an awkward conversation to pull somebody back out of it. So the best thing to do is just catch it early and just say, hey, that sounds really fascinating, but before we go down that rabbit hole, can we just finish talking about this other thing?
So in this scenario, I'm the mentor. Right, Nicole is the observer, the fly on the wall.
Yeah.
She's going to do the critiquing.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'll interact with David, and we're just like, David is a mentor. So this is David Brown, and maybe just for everybody's sake, you can do like a quick, 2 minutes on yourself. And what we're going to assume is that you have come in and done your background homework on the person.
So I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've worked in startups all my life. I would say that my areas of expertise are in scaling businesses, in management, helping grow teams, set culture. Most of the businesses I've been involved with have been B2B businesses, so growing sales team, things like that would be something I'm familiar with. B2C, less so.
Okay, should we get started?
Yeah.
Ready? We'll learn a little bit. Okay, so in a normal mentor meeting, he's probably sitting in the room. You guys are probably out of the room, so I actually want you to practice the coming in and shaking hands, and whenever you guys are ready. Yep.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. I'm Greta.
Hi, Greta. I'm David.
Lauren.
Lauren, nice to meet you.
Thanks so much for sitting down with us today. We're really excited to pick your brain.
Fantastic. Tell me a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, we will. So Lauren and I are co-founders of Blue Fever, and we're essentially a better version of Netflix for millennial women that focuses on community and mood curation. And our background is in film, independent filmmakers, and we saw so many flaws after making our own films and really observing the landscape. We saw flaws in the independent film system for anyone in it, but specifically for women. And then when we looked at the data, we saw that, Hollywood films were being made all the time, but women were only leads in these films about 15% of the time. Yet when they were on screen, they made 20% more money. And when movies were helmed by women, which there's only 4% of directors who are women in Hollywood, they made, 4 times as much money on that movie.
The movies did.
Yeah.
The ROI.
So I'm a little bit confused. Are you taking the content that would be on Netflix and curating it down to those that would be of interest for women, or is it something different than that?
That's a great question. So we're still refining our elevator pitch, and we have been going with what we've been doing, but it's problematic when we use the word Netflix because we're actually not working with Netflix whatsoever. We are just a streaming platform. So we're a streaming platform for millennial women because, Hollywood has...
Content is movies and TV shows.
Movies, series.
The same movies and TV shows that you might see on Netflix, but curated.
No, so we're actually working on sort of a lower tier, if you will. We're obviously a startup company and can't necessarily compete with Netflix on that level. So what we did coming from our background is partner with actual independent filmmakers who are working outside of the studio system who aren't getting through. So because there aren't a lot of women in Hollywood, we exist sort of outside of that system.
So the content I would see on your platform is different than the content I would see on the Netflix platform.
It's mostly more short form at the moment, although we will add long form later. But at the moment we're talking about web series, short films, music videos.
Okay, so can I stop you? So we're about, 2.5, 3 minutes in, and he went so deep in the rabbit hole of Netflix.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys got this feedback yesterday, stop it.
We realize it.
But so what's happened is that you've burned 3 minutes of a really valuable meeting, pulling him out of the Netflix rat hole.
Right.
Okay. So know that you've gotten this feedback a couple times now. He's really trying. He's like glued in on Netflix.
Yeah. Right.
How is this Netflix?
Yeah.
That's hurting you because it's burning really valuable time for your ability to get information and guidance out of him.
Right.
So if you find yourself, so this is for everybody, right? If you find the person has gone down a rat hole that's gone a completely different direction than what your business is, you need to, it's okay to go, okay, can we start over? I inadvertently got you down the wrong direction. Let's start over, right? And it's better to reset than try to reverse, pull him out of the mindset that he's gone into.
Okay,
I think I got it. You said you wanted to pick my brain on a few things. What
Yes, we did.
What were those?
First, we wanted to show you the platform so you could get an idea of what
let's
we're
make
working
sure we
with.
turn it this way.
Oh.
Maybe lift it up.
Yep. So essentially, this is a subscription-based platform. Right now, it's free for a year. Sign up at bluefever.com.
Seriously. Yeah.
And we just launched our first exclusive series. So the audience can actually go in and you can pick whether or not you're going to watch it as a movie or a series. In this case, we did 2 versions of the same product as a test. But you can also watch by other genres, and eventually we're going to also launch moods. So let's say you were a young woman, which clearly you are not, but you were going through PMS.
I live with a few.
And they go through PMS, they can actually search by that mood and find something that satisfies the issues that they're going through in that moment.
Do you have an idea of how David might help you and what you want to ask him?
Yeah,
Okay.
So do you
Great.
see he's chomping at the bit
Yeah.
a little bit to talk?
So just skip the other parts, basically.
I feel like that was a little bit too much. Maybe you could have gotten to the question sooner.
Okay.
You're pitching. You're continuing to pitch. And part of the art of the mentor meeting is learning when to stop talking. And you blew through the line a little bit, right? Yeah. So, because he's got questions.
So what was going through my mind is I think I generally get it. I don't think I'm going to be the domain expert for you. I'm wanting to shift the conversation to my next question, which is, how are you going to get information about your product out to market? What's your go-to-market strategy?
Yeah.
Other than broadcasting live to 100 other companies.
What we find works well for us is when Greta and I are in person, especially with young women, which we recognize isn't scalable. So we're trying to currently figure out what is the best way to utilize all of those people who are really excited about what we're doing, who are volunteering for us, who are ambassadors for our company. We have 300 young women signed up for that, and trying to make that.
So do you have a user base? We haven't talked about traction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have about 800 active users at the moment.
So can I just stop you? You just missed a great opportunity. You have a giant challenge in scaling your user base. Yeah. He asked you how you're going to get users, and you said we have a challenge. The thing you could have done was turn a question around and go, this is what we're currently doing, we know it's not scalable. Do you have any suggestions?
So I think what you're doing is you're trying, because you're saying the two of you are effective when you're there in person, you want to take the 300 most influential users that you have and activate them.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? Are you finding that they're doing that already, naturally, and you want to do it more?
Yes, but we're learning how. Like, we know that they're excited and they're sharing because they're telling us that, but we don't really have a way to track it.
I think I think a question for you would be, we're working on an effective method to give them the best opportunity to share our content and to share their love of Blue Fever, and then track all of that so that we can have all of the data on how that is actually going.
So there's the features of sharing, and then there's the motivation of sharing, even if the features are there, what's in it for them.
Right.
Are you thinking about both those? Which one are you more worried about?
Oh, so he's digging on the same line of questioning for a long time. He's having a hard time understanding what your challenge is. So it's worth noting that, because he's been digging on the same line of questioning, that whatever it is about how you framed the challenge that you have is not totally getting through.
It's not clear.
He's like asking clarification question after clarification question after he asked like 5 in a row. So just like heads up that you could burn through most of the meeting on him just even understanding what the problem is.
Right.
Okay.
You want to get more users. I'm trying to bucket it in, is it this bucket, this bucket, this bucket, this bucket, right? It's not the bucket of convincing them to spread the word. You said that's a no-brainer. It's not the bucket of what features do we need. You said you have that covered. I'm narrowing in on maybe it's the bucket that you can't make it usable in a way that they like, but now I'm picking up on it's the platform that you're looking for. Is it Facebook or is it Snapchat? We're spending, as Nicole's saying, we're spending a lot of time sort of deconstructing what the problem is, so that then, once I know where the problem is, we can talk about, well, maybe here's some ideas on how you can solve it.
Right.
Although honestly, in my mind, I'm thinking I'm so far afield of what I know that even if I can identify what the problem is, I don't know that I'm really going to be able to help. And maybe the really valuable thing to do here is for me to reset the whole conversation and say, let's talk about something completely a different kind of challenge.
Well, I would ask for a different kind of challenge, kind of going to what you said about pitching. We are just coming off of raising the first tranche of our seed round and have been in crazy pitch mode. And now we're transitioning into execution mode. So there's some road bumps of us switching,
like literally yesterday.
Switching our brains, and that is something
for these mentor meetings.
For these mentor meetings, for Techstars.
The entire company, for everything we do on a day-to-day basis.
Let me pause you for a second, right? So you flew through something that I think you want to slow down and think about, okay? What I haven't yet figured out, and he'll be able to answer, is was your line of questioning because you didn't understand the problem, or because you were trying to fill space and time to get to something that you felt like you could engage on?
That was the first.
It was?
Yeah, it was.
Okay. So he's thinking.
Although I'm worried that I wouldn't be able to engage even if I figured out what the problem was.
Okay, so that's good to know, because I wasn't positive about that. But you want to make sure that you can get to something that the person feels like they can engage on. Otherwise, one of two things is going to happen. They feel obligated to give you guidance on something that they actually don't have a background in, right? Or you get through this whole line of questioning and it doesn't go anywhere, you don't get anything out of it, and that person doesn't feel helpful, and you don't really feel like you got anything out of it, right? So sometimes it's like you guys have been he's actually been asking lots of questions, but you've been talking a lot. So it's good to, sometimes I think it's really good to come into a meeting and go, here are the 3 or 4 things that we're really struggling with today, right? Are there any of these that you feel particularly qualified to talk to us about? And we can go deep on that one. That might have been a really good way to start with him.
Great advice, yeah.
And that way he's going deep on an area where he feels he can contribute, right? And by the way, it'll also help with the line of questioning.
That is really great advice.
Yeah, I like
Right.
that.
Yeah, I love the idea. There are a few things in there. There's a lot in there. I won't dissect it all, but like I love the idea of coming in with a list of things that you're looking for help with. It's something that I used to do. I'd always have my list of like problems when I was developing my own startup. You have your list of challenges and problems that you just always have, and sometimes it's really easy to just lay that list down in front of somebody, say, here's what I have challenges with, no matter what it is you're working on. It could be outside of a startup. If you're working on something, developing something new, or even a project, and you have these challenges, being able to present them to somebody and they'll immediately zone in on what it is that they think they can help with, because I know what I can help with better than you might be able to ask me how I can help. So having your list of problems is a really good way of starting a meeting if you are going in with a mission of coming out having one of them solved or having a direction on one of them. So part number 4, ask better questions. Entrepreneurs tend to waste time during mentor meetings describing what they do and failing to articulate their problems. This video will help you craft problem-specific questions for your mentor meeting to move your company forward. I will just say, before we dive through, welcome Linda and Aviva. I look forward to the mentorship meeting.
So startups usually waste the most time in the mentor meeting talking. And usually it's around describing the business and what the business does.
So 2 things wrong with that. One is it's all pitch, it's all about the good stuff. And the second thing is it's all about the product.
And sometimes it takes a founder of the whole 30 minutes of a 30-minute long meeting to describe what they do. Remember, you're there to learn, you're there to hear, you're there to listen. And so the less talking you do, the more value you will get out of it.
And so if you give a quick overview of your business and your product, that's great, but do that as quickly as possible so you can sink into the meat of the conversation that you're going to be having. Hi guys, come on in.
Hey, dude. Patrick.
Patrick, nice to meet you.
Alex.
Alex,
Hi. Zoo. Nice to meet you.
nice to meet you.
Thanks
Grab
for meeting with
seats.
us.
How are the handshakes?
These were all good. They were all good, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so...
I'm guessing you're playful.
We are Playful. Yes. And Playful is an app where you can play games and win food from restaurants like Chipotle, Chick-fil-A, Denny's, Coffee Bean, and more. And one big problem we're having is how to scale to new restaurant markets we're entering. And so we would love to get your advice on that.
Great. Let me ask a couple of quick questions
Sure.
about the product. You play an app, so I get an app. If I win a game, I get a free burrito. Is that?
Yeah, you can get discounted as well as completely free meals.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Chuck E. Cheese or Dave & Buster's where you can save up. Yeah.
And you have an affiliation with Chipotle because you're driving business their way, that they're not only providing the discount, but you get an affiliate fee or something like that?
Yeah, so right now we're charging them monthly, but yes, we give them all the data, and we actually built...
You're charging Chipotle in this case?
Yes, we're charging Chipotle.
Yeah.
We actually build custom analytics for them
that
look like this, so they can see exactly who's coming in, who's engaging with their brand at what time, and also we have a cool map feature, kind of like, we're trying to build it like Pokemon Go, where they can see actually where in the world they're engaging with their brand.
Got it. What's going to break inside Playful?
The user base, because we've been able to do kind of events at UCLA, kind of like doing things that don't scale, to, I guess, let people know what the app is and how to download it, what it does. We're not sure if we can scale that in other areas.
Because you're acquiring users sort of guerrilla style, one at a time, doing events on campus.
Yeah.
And now it's going to be harder if it's not in your home base, if it's in San Diego.
Yeah, and we haven't explored like digital advertising or things like that yet. So we probably will do that in Techstars.
He's asking a lot of questions and he's engaged, but he's trying to figure out where he can help you.
Yeah.
You haven't given him yet a clear thing. Like you said, help scale, but then it was so broad that he didn't really understand where to dig in. So he's trying to figure out where to sort of step in and be helpful, and he hasn't yet. Like he's like poking at little different places to try to figure out where he can be helpful. He hasn't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
So help him, right? Like, okay, you have a list of features. Put the list of features in front of him, and say, look at these. Give him something to bite his teeth into, because he's right now like he's like, well, I don't know what to do.
The analogy I always use there is I'm using my tuning fork, right, or metal detector, right? I'm trying to figure out, where is the problem that I can.
He can dig his teeth
into. I think the problem we're trying to solve is what direction should we go in, and I guess how do you make decisions when you have, I guess, different options in front of you with scaling or marketing your business?
Yeah, I mean, I think it runs a gamut from trust your gut to do an analysis. Right? In this particular case, it sounds like there's lots of features. You have an opportunity cost when you're developing them. That's what you're describing.
Yeah.
That there's an analysis that can be done. Doesn't mean it has to be perfect and you should spend weeks on it. It means that you should make a list and do a sniff test and score them 1 to 10 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then whichever one scores at the top, do that.
Okay.
And don't overthink I need to make the perfect decision and suffer from analysis paralysis.
Well, I was just going to pause you there because it felt like a really natural place for the meeting to end, right? He doesn't really know where to go from there, and that's okay, right? It's actually okay. Like, he'll probably walk out of that meeting going, cool, I think I helped them a little bit. I probably won't engage with them over the long term, but that's okay, right? He felt like he gave you something, he felt like he contributed in some way, but there wasn't this like, that's something I can really sink my teeth into to help on an ongoing basis. So just to talk about that, like, that's an awesome mentor meeting. That's a successful mentor meeting.
I don't know if I'm a prototypical mentor, but probably for most mentors, it's a bell curve, right? There's, out of 10 companies, there's a couple that you're like, wow, that's something I relate to those founders, I relate to that space, I'm going to really engage there. A couple of those, a couple of, I don't even know what that was. I can't even remember their names. And then there's 6 in the middle of exactly how you described it. I helped a little. I understand the business. Maybe if there's a specific question about something that we talked about, they'll call me. If not, that's totally fine.
Cool.
I think that's a really good point that they ended on. One thing is when you would book a mentorship meeting with myself or with anybody in Tangent, the standard time for a mentorship meeting is 30 minutes. However, that is not an obligation. That's an opportunity. Every mentorship meeting is meant for a few things. One, to introduce yourself, get to know somebody new in some way, but in a mentorship capacity, it's to accomplish the goal of solving a problem. So if you walk in, and I have had this happen before, where somebody walks in and within 5 minutes I understand the problem and have the next person they need to talk to that solves their problem, that's a successful meeting, and there's no obligation to force the meeting to be any longer than that. So that's one thing that took me a while to grasp as a mentee, and I don't even think I fully grasped it until I was on the mentor side and realized, oh, these mentors don't need to spend as much time as they booked with me. There's no added value to that. The value is in solving the problem. And the quicker we can do that, the better your time is spent and the better a mentor's time is spent. So it's an interesting insight, but something that took me quite a while to realize. So with that, part number 5, build relationships. The day-to-day business objectives are only a small piece of running a great company. Regardless of the mentor's background, you can leverage their knowledge in other ways to grow as a leader. This video will guide you in developing lasting relationships with mentors who can help you overcome common struggles of entrepreneurship. Let's go for it.
I think one of the things that's the most overlooked in mentor-mentee relationships is the chemistry.
You either have chemistry or you don't. And if you don't have chemistry, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You can still be helpful to somebody or you can still ask for help. But know that in those situations, it can often be a little bit more transactional, which isn't always bad.
And I think if you find somebody that you have really good chemistry with, whether on either side of the table, it's a really good opportunity to go deeper.
Because the mentor and mentee end up developing a lifelong relationship with one another that usually will never end. So be authentically you. When you become authentically you, you will drive deeper, more meaningful relationships with your mentors and your mentees. And that will help you get a lot of value out of those relationships, and it will also help you add a lot of value to them. So do you remember how yesterday we talked about that the most important thing in mentorship is chemistry, and it's not background?
Yeah.
Right? It's so true. It is so true. Background can be really helpful, but that background being helpful will be really helpful with the specifics of your business. But let's be honest, the specifics of your business are only part of running a great company. The rest of it is hiring, it's strategy, it's pricing. It's not the specifics of the product or the industry itself, right? So if the person doesn't have a background in it, you can leverage them and learn from them in other ways. You don't need to convince them of the viability of the product itself. So that's why truly understanding, getting out of the data of the background of the person and turning that data of their background into knowledge and wisdom about how to best engage with them is so critical. So because he doesn't need to know anything about your business, and he can still be really, really helpful to you as founders in terms of the common struggles that most businesses face, right?
Having said that, I would, maybe not all mentors, I would like 30 seconds to have
No,
some clue.
you want a reference.
Right, yeah.
You always want a reference point. You want to understand the basics, but you don't need to go into the specific details. And sometimes the best thing to do is just ask the person. Right, there was a company that went this morning that does the virtual reality, augmented reality stuff, right? And I think that, and David didn't have any clue about that space. So the best thing to do is, we're in this space. This is generally what we do. If this is an interesting space to you, we can dive really deep. Is that what you would like? Or would you like us to talk about one of these 3 topics, which is where we're struggling? And then let the mentor figure out or decide where to take it. And in that way, it's most beneficial for both of you.
I'd add one piece on chemistry. There's 3 of you.
Use the mic.
There's 3 of you in the meeting, and there was one person doing the majority of the talking, and there's 3 very capable people. And people can vary on how many people talk. But if you come out of the meeting and David's thinking, wow, Brian was great. I didn't hear from these other 2. I don't really know if they're, if I like them or not. Or he comes out of the meeting, this team was amazing, because I heard from Kate, I heard from Jim, I heard from Brian. If there's ways that you guys can talk about before, and you brought it up, should we interject or not? Like, if you guys can figure that out ahead of time, of we might all communicate, we might all participate in this, you can come out of the meeting having the mentor fall in love with your whole team.
Cool. There is no true answer to this, because it's going to be a little bit different for each company based on your personalities of the founders, right? I think that if you have 3 people in the room, my preference is that all 3 people talk. This is my preference. It's not everybody's preference. It's not his. He wants to talk to one person and have one person to kind of focus on, otherwise it's confusing. I like to know who's in the room. The point is that there isn't a universal answer. So it's gonna be what works best for your company and what works best for you guys as individuals. So find your rhythm. And your rhythm is right for you guys, right? There isn't a otherwise a right answer here.
And I'll just clarify on that, and I think we have another company. I think that it's great when all 3 talk, but when you force it, when you're like, well, could you please introduce yourself? It just chews up more time.
Yeah, just as added, I tend to like it when people have areas of expertise that they talk about. Yeah. This person talks about product, this person talks about customer base and users, right? And then it feels like you guys are really a team. It feels very natural, and that everybody has clear delineations of responsibility in the business.
Yeah, so this makes a lot of sense. In the same way that you might, after a pitch, you have kind of a Q&A. If you've ever done a pitch or a presentation before where you have a question and answer after, and you go, okay, you're going to answer these types of questions, you're going to answer these types of questions. You can do the same thing for a mentorship meeting. It's just discussion topics. So if we're going to talk about scaling, Joe's your guy. If we're going to talk about the early business development, here's your person. If we're going to talk about the tech, here's your tech person to talk to. And you as a team just know going into it who's going to talk about what. That can build confidence, because when the question comes or when you're on a topic, everybody knows who they're going to be talking about. But yeah, I loved the idea of being authentically you. That's always going to carry through. That's what's going to build a relationship with a mentor. You don't want to build a false relationship with a mentor where they think you're this type of person and this is why it works, and then all of a sudden you're not. That doesn't work. That's broader. That's even any relationship, but I won't go down that rabbit hole. So part 6, final thoughts. Pats on the back are great, but you need mentors who will challenge you and provide an authentic, real-world perspective about running a business. This video will help you choose the right mentors, dig deeper into the conversations, and gain real value from your mentor relationships. Cool.
So do you want to look for mentors that agree with you or mentors that disagree with you? I would say that the latter are far more valuable. You want somebody that's going to challenge you, challenge your thinking, give you new ideas.
I think a lot about telling them what nobody else is willing to tell them, the stuff that's hard to say. And I do that out of love. And I also oftentimes I just try to give them a different perspective. So I want that out of mentors that have mentored me, because those people that have mentored me have done that for me in the past, and it's been some of the most, it's probably why I'm in the career that I am in today.
So one way to think about it, the business is this big, right? You have a problem that's a slice of it. You have, within that problem, a very narrow topic. If you have a mentor meeting where you talk deeply about that very narrow thing, even though it's only 1% of the business, but it's a big, significant chunk of the problem that you're having, you'll get real value out of it, and so will the mentor. And that will be worth, well worth the meeting time.
I think one other thing this session really illustrated for me is that it could be really helpful going into mentor office hours to have a list of questions that you're grappling with, some of which have nothing to do with the space that you're in. So you could think about, what are you struggling with from a team and organization perspective? What are you struggling with from a fundraising strategy perspective? And then what are you struggling with from a growth and business perspective? And that way you'll have something that's meaningful to you to offer up to someone, even if they're not an expert in your vertical.
It could even be, I'm struggling with, I'm struggling with leadership. I'm struggling with personal organization. I'm struggling with how to prioritize. It doesn't even, it can be personal things too, because remember, growing your business is also about growing yourself, and the more that you can parallel those two paths together, the better things happen. So I really encourage you guys to do this on your own. The more you can practice yourself with somebody else, and the more you can watch others practice, the better. That will radically accelerate your learning in this. So when you actually hit your mentor meetings, that you can be super productive in them.
Cool. So yeah, it again comes back at the end of that, just to putting your putting your challenges into conversation topic buckets. So if you come in with, hey, here's one challenge area, here's a challenge area, here's a challenge area, and the mentor can go, oh, that's the one that I know I can help with, or I have an idea for. That can get you a lot more value out of your mentorship meeting than if you just go in and start talking about the first thing that happens to come up. So with that, guys, I am going to go into the Apply Your Knowledge. We're going to look at the worksheet and kind of the exercises that you can do. Some of these are preparatory, some of them are during, and some of them are after. But it's all going to be valuable to you, and I'd encourage you guys, because I am just going to go through this, to actually come back and look at it and use it. If you are going to book a mentorship session with me, I would love to hear that before it, you went and looked up, these sorts of things and did that. Wonderful. And I'd love to hear feedback. But anyway, your mentor. Oh, what I will say before I go into it, the last thing is just, if based off of that you guys have questions, or even as I'm going through this, type it in. I'm happy to answer them here and now while I'm here. Otherwise, I'll just go through, and then at the very end, I get to give away a free pizza, my favorite part of the day. So, your mentor. In preparing for your mentor meeting, begin to do your homework on the individual, learn about their strengths, expertise, and career path. Use the information you gain as a snapshot for the mentor's entrepreneurial journey, and understand who they are as a person, right? So this is the initial exercise of looking at the mentor, their current role and responsibilities, their past roles and responsibilities, their professional strengths, and their topics to discuss. So for example, myself, I manage the student entrepreneurship program in Trinity College Dublin in Tangent. My past roles, I have worked for the college, I've worked in a direct sales company, I've co-founded a startup aimed at digitizing the beekeeping industry that used machine vision. These are all things that might help you as you inform your conversation with me. Professional strengths, I will not go into that. I'm not that vain. Topics to discuss, maybe things that build off of that. So with that, that's kind of your prior to. So you can use that. I see Column, very good. You have a Leo mentor meeting tomorrow, and we'll definitely book one with you. Awesome, cool. Look forward to it. Maybe you fill that out beforehand, then I'll see what you have. So then there's a bit of text. I'm not going to go into the detail of it. Essentially what it is looking at why you're asking the questions that you're asking to your mentor. So I am asking this to the mentor when you create your conversation buckets. I am asking this to the mentor so that. Why? Why are you asking that question? What is the outcome that you're looking for? If I'm asking, how do I scale? It's so that I can have something actionable to work on, or so that I can know what to do next. Or if it's hiring somebody, why should I do that? It's just thinking beyond the question to know what it is that you're trying to get out of it. And then you can add some additional notes after if you have feedback. Then this is the breaking down of the questions. So this is kind of your different team members, who's going to be in the meeting and who's going to answer what. Sometimes it's one-to-one, sometimes it's a couple people meeting with a mentor. You might just break down who's going to answer questions about what. And also having a dedicated note taker is a key strategy. I have seen a number of teams do this before, and it works very well because that person knows their job is to take down everything that happens in that meeting, regardless of who says it, and make sure that you get the most out of the meeting. So that's just another key tip to take on. These are some little things to look at. So signs of engagement and signs of disengagement. If you've ever looked at this study of body language, these are some basic tips. If somebody's fidgety or gazing off, they're probably disengaged. If they look excited or smiling and laughing or making eye contact, they're more likely to be engaged. These are all more likely things. They're not the absolute be-all end-all of engagement or disengagement, especially in the world of online. It can be a bit different, but it's some good things to take a look at when you have the chance. Then the team. So before you meet with your mentor, run through this checklist to make sure your team is well prepared for your conversation and gain insight and value from the meeting. So in parallel or in partnership with the first thing of getting to know who your mentor is before you sit down and mentor for the mentorship session with them, this is a checklist you can go through. I'm not going to read all of them, but some key ones. Can you provide a brief demo of the product or service? That is often a question that comes up in a meeting. It's the third one down there. If you're asked, hey, how does this work? Do you have a way of showing a demo to somebody? That's a really good thing to have when you're in the meeting. Another one, as I mentioned before, a bit further down, is know who's taking notes. Have your dedicated note taker who's going to write down as the conversation happens. And the last one there is one of my favorites, have a follow-up plan. So if you go into the meeting knowing when you think might be the next time that you want to follow up, it can build off of your I'm asking this question so that what, right? So I'm asking this question so that I'm asking about scaling so that I can execute on that plan. And my follow-up plan is to follow up with the mentor and meet again with them to check in on my progress once that is accomplished, provided they give me the answer to my question. There may be a number of other questions, but each of those can lead to what will your follow-up plan be? When I sit down and I mentor people, I often look at, okay, here's the thing that I think you might want to do next. Once you've done that, come back. The mentorship sessions, it's not like one and done. You can come back and meet again. And ideally, with any mentor, that's what you want to have. So some things to look at before you go in. And then these are kind of the follow-up things. So looking at your chemistry between your mentor, did they seem engaged or disengaged? Did the conversation stay on track or was there a reset? And then what were the top 3 things you took away from the meeting? So these are kind of the post result, like looking at the meeting and how it did. With that post result of looking at how the meeting and how it went, in combination with all of the notes that you took, you can do this exercise at the end that I think is really, really good. And I actually have not implemented myself before, but I've seen something like this implemented and it works very well. Essentially, what you do is create a number of Post-its based off of the notes that you have. So you have facts, emotions, learnings, and advice. And you're going to put down all of the key things from that meeting or a number of mentorship meetings that you may have had into these categories so that you can make decisions on the other end of the whiteboard once it's all laid out. And obviously it's color-coded, kind of based on which mentor said what. Just to give you a bit more detail, facts, what are the key facts or the data that came out of your mentor meetings? Have each member of the team identify the facts and data that stood out. Compare what each team member said versus the notes taken down during the meeting. So that's where you can look at the notes versus what everybody thought and make the best informed decisions. Next, go through the key facts, data, and ask yourself, what emotions do I associate with that fact? Write down your emotions next to the key facts. Now, this is really important actually because looking at were there a lot of facts that made us feel good or a lot of facts that made us feel bad can give you an indication as to whether or not that is a mentor who's really challenging you. If everything sounded positive and on the up and up, you may not have been challenged in that meeting, which is okay. It may have helped you towards the next step. But when you're trying to look at when you're being challenged or if you're ever being challenged, it's a really important thing to look at how it made you feel. Then learnings. What learnings came out of the mentor meeting? Go through the facts and emotions and note areas where you have learnings from the experience. Have each person contribute learnings to the emotions listed below. So you take the facts, the emotions, how you felt, and what did you learn? What can you do? And then advice. Given these learnings, emotions, and facts presented during the mentor meeting, what advice would you give yourself? Write down your advice. This may be advice about your business or suggestions for the next mentor meeting. So this is what you can bring to the next one, and that's kind of what leads you into the decisions, like how you decide what's going to come next. Now, as always with the Techstars Toolkit, they do have the little boxes there for you, and if you click in the bottom right, you can save your work. You can't see it there, but actually I'm blocking the way of it, but just behind me on the screen there is a box that says save your work. So if you would like to save your work, you're able to click that. Actually, what I can do, there you are, you can see it, save your work just there. I'll put myself back in the corner now. And yeah, so that's where some things following up, it's important to follow up with each mentor within 24 hours, really. If you do not, it can, sorry, I've just realized I've moved myself almost off the screen. There we are, we're back here. If you do not follow up after the meeting, it can be a challenge because you're kind of trying to follow up on a meeting that happened so far ago that you might not remember what the key points are to follow up about. Thank them for their time, mention something specific in your communication that was particularly helpful, summarize their advice given and how the team plans to use that going forward, and respond to any unanswered questions, and then ask any follow-up questions that came up kind of after you had that meeting. So this is the worksheet. Those were the exercises. I think this is one of the more valuable sessions for anybody who is going through the process of talking to people about their ideas. So if you're at the point where you're talking to loads of people about your ideas, anybody can be a mentor. Just because it's not called a mentorship session doesn't mean it's not a mentorship session.